Okay, good morning, everybody. Today happens to be the 17th, I believe the 17th class. I'll just very quickly revise what we have done in the yesterday's class. In the yesterday's class, we saw what is the meaning of a table in HTML. If you want to display tabular data, then we can make use of tables. And when we make use of tables, there are several tags that we make use of. We use the table tag, we use the tr tag, then we use the td tag, th for table heading. Then there are some semantic HTML tags which are used in semantic HTML pages, T body, T header, T footer, and so on. Okay, so we have seen exactly how to place tables, how to give the border property and all that. After we have learned tables, then we saw how to give styles to the tables. We saw how to give styles to the tables. Like if you want the border of the table to be thick, then how to give it, how to give a different color to the border and so on. We have seen how to give styles to the tables. Then let us now start with a new topic today. In the same chapter, of course, we are in the second module. We are learning what is the meaning of forms. Let us see what is the meaning of forms in HTML. In HTML, in web pages. Okay, if you want to read some input from the user, let us say normally whenever we see HTML pages, what we see most of the times what we see is a lot of text on the HTML pages to display information about a particular company or a college and so on. Then we see a lot of images on the web pages. We see images. Then we see hyperlinks. We see links that will take us from one place to another place. We see tables in which tabular data is displayed. And finally, what we see, especially on web pages, is we see forms. What is the meaning of a form? A form is a technique to read user data, to take user input, okay, into web applications. For example, let us say you want to develop a web application in which you want to read from the user some data. For example, you must have seen these forms normally in feedback forms. You must have seen these forms in registration forms during the registration process, during giving the feedback. Okay, if you have any queries to be submitted to the company, then what they provide you on a web page is a form in which you have to fill the details and then you submit it, which goes and reaches the company. So basically what is the meaning of a form is a way to read user input from the user and then submit it to the server, to the web form, and then to process it. Now how this form is processed, that we will see it separately later on. Okay, now for this we have to learn PHP, how the data is submitted to the server, how do we process this data on the server. This is all in the third module. In the fourth module, when we learn PHP, there we will learn how to process this form. But right now we will learn in HTML how to place forms. We will learn how to place forms. For example, look at this example here. Okay, what we have here is an example of a form. Okay, they have displayed a form here. What is there in this form? There is a text box. Okay, there is a label here. Called as title. Beside that there is a text box. When you see a text box like this, immediately you come to know that this is a place where you have to type something. Okay, where the user is supposed to type something. This facility is given to the user to type something there. Then another element that you see in this form is a drop down. So when I click on that drop down combo box, this is called as a combo box basically. So when I click on that, it drops down a list of items from where I can select one item. Okay, so this is another way of reading some input from the user. For example, you are asking the user to enter which country he or she belongs to. Let us say you want to ask the person to which country he or she belongs to. So you can provide a text box like this, and then you can ask the user to enter the name of the country. The better choice would be, instead of providing a text box, I can provide a combo box like this and list all the countries in the world. So when I click on that, automatically that country appears, and the user, instead of typing the name of the country, he has to select it from the list. It becomes easy for the user also to select the country. Okay, what happens in case of a text box is that while typing the name of the country, he may misspell it. The spelling of the country he might write it wrong and all that. But when you have a drop down like this, you know that the spellings, you have written it correctly and so on. So a form is a technique to read user input user input, and then after I click on this button, then this data can be taken to the server. On the server I can process this. How to process this on the server is a different topic. We are going to learn that in the fourth module, but right now we will learn how to place this text box on a web page. Okay, in HTML, how to place form elements, these things that you see, the text box, the label, the combo box, the submit button, the reset button, all these are called as elements of the form. Remember, these are called as form elements. Form elements. Some people also call them as components. Okay, components for user input. Okay, they're called as form elements, they're called as components and all that, but we are going to refer to them as form elements. So text box is a form element, a label is a form element, a combo box is a form element, submit button is a form element, a normal button is a form element, a reset button is a form element, and so on. So there are different types of form elements. Okay, there is a radio button, there is a checkbox. Okay, there is a text area. So there are different types of form elements. Now, depending upon what type of data you are reading from the user, you place these elements on the form. For example, let us say you are asking the user to enter his name. Let us say there is a form in which you want to ask the user to enter his name. And the best and the most appropriate form element for asking the user to enter his name would be a text box, because name is something which is unique to somebody. I mean, it is something which is unique to him. You cannot give a combo box and in which you give him the list of all the names from where he will select one name. That cannot happen. You cannot give a combo box for a user to enter his name. The text box is the more appropriate and the most relevant form element. Similarly, if you're asking the user to enter his gender, whether he is a male or a female, then in that case, a drop down like this would be better, a combo box in which you have only two options, male and female. And then if not a combo box, you can provide them radio buttons, okay, where he can select any one, either male or female, like that. So depending upon what you are asking the user to enter, you have to use appropriate controls. You have to use appropriate elements. Okay, these elements are also called as user controls. Okay, a text box is a user control, it's a form element, and so on. So depending upon what type of data you're asking the user to enter, you have to provide appropriate controls, appropriate elements. If you're asking for gender, a combo box would be better, or a radio button is better. If you're asking a person to enter his name, then text box is of course better. If you're asking the person to enter his age, text box is better, and so on and so on. Okay, so now we will see how to place these form elements on the form. Okay, we will see how to place these form elements on the form. So form is a way to ask the user to enter his details. Forms has got multiple elements. Depending upon what you are asking the user to enter, you have to provide the user appropriate elements, appropriate controls. The structure of the form, whenever you want to place a form on the web page, whenever you want to place a form on the web page, you have to always start with the form tag. So I will just have a simple HTML page here which contains HTML tag and the body tag. If you want to place any form element on the web page, you have to always start with the form tag. Always start with the form tag. Okay, the form tag has two very important attributes. One is the method. The method attribute is equals to, you have to assign something to it, and next is the action attribute to which you have to assign something to it. Okay, so these are the two very important attributes that you have to put in the form tag. The form tag, like this, it is the form tag starts like this, and then it has got two very important attributes: the method attribute and the action attribute. The method attribute, you have to assign some value. This we will come to method and action when we come to module number 4. So I will remove this right now. But remember, the form tag has got two very important attributes: the method attribute and the action attribute. We will come to this method attribute and action attribute later on when we do module number 4, when we start with PHP, when we do server side programming. That time we will come there. Okay, but right now remember that if you want to place a form element on a web page, you have to always start with a form tag. You have to start with the form tag. Then after that, by just placing a form tag in the HTML page, your text boxes, your radio buttons will not appear. Now you have to add these elements to the form. You have to add these elements to the form as it is right now. If I save this program, if I save this page, okay, in the D drive somewhere, if I save it in the yeah, I have a folder here called as web. Yeah, there it is. And then I will have form underscore example dot html. Okay, so I have this here. So I will open this. So I have form example. So when I open this form, I don't see anything here. I don't see anything here. You can see here the form element is there, but on the web page there is nothing. By just placing the form element in the web page, you will not get any elements. To put an element on the web page, you have to use the input tag. You have to say input. You have to use the input tag. Input type is equals to now you have to specify what type of an element you require. If you need a text box on the web page, you have to write input type is equals to text. You have to write input type is equals to text. If you want on the web page a button to come, you have to write input type is equals to, if you want a submit button, then you have to write submit. If you want input type is equals to, if you want a reset button, then you can write reset. If you want a reset button to come, then you have to write reset. If you want a radio button to come, then you write radio. If you want a radio button to come, then you write radio. If you want a checkbox to come, then you write checkbox. If you want a checkbox to come, then you write checkbox. If you want a simple button to come, then you write input type is equals to button, and so on. Now that you have a form, to this form you can add any of these elements. If you want a text box to come there, then you write input. The tag name is input. Remember, it is the input tag. Input type is equals to text, will produce a text box. Input type is equals to submit, will produce a submit button. Input type is equals to reset, will produce a reset button on the web page. Input type is equals to radio, will produce a radio button on the web page. Input type is equals to checkbox, will produce a checkbox. Input type is equals to button, will produce a simple button on the web page, and so on. I will explain to you the difference between a submit button, reset button, and a simple button later on. But right now, just try to understand, to place different elements on the web page, which are the tags that we have to make use of. So I save this program file, save it. I come here to the web page, and if I refresh this, if I refresh that, you can see that I have this elements have automatically come. So there is a text box here. This is because of which statement? It is because of this statement. Input type is equals to text. Input type is equals to submit. Because of that, this button has appeared. So when I click on that, nothing happens right now because we have not written any server-side coding and all that. Then we have input type is equals to reset. It is because of this statement here. Input type is equals to reset. Then input type is equals to radio. So when I click on that, you can see that the radio button is getting clicked. It is because of this statement here. It is because of this tag, checkbox tag, that you see a checkbox on the web page, so I can check that. And then input type is equals to button. You can see that there is a button, a simple button. Okay, it's a simple button. Okay, it's not a submit button, it's not a reset button. I will come to buttons later on. I will explain you the difference between submit, reset, and the normal button later on. But right now, just imagine, to place a simple button on the web page, we have to use input type is equals to button. Now, the other elements of the form. Now you will ask me a question, sir, what if I want to place a combo box? What if I want to place a combo box? Combo box in the sense a drop down. How to place a drop down on my web page? For that, you have to use the select statement. You have to use the select tag. Okay, you have to use a select tag. Now these tags, input type is equals to text, submit, reset. This is for producing text boxes, buttons, submit, reset, normal, checkbox, and radio button. Now, if you want to place a combo box, we don't use the input tag. If you want to place a combo box, what is a combo box? A combo box is this. A combo box is this example which I showed you here. Yeah, this one. This is a combo box. What you see here, this is a combo box. When I click on that, drop down comes. So to place this on my web page, I have to place it in the form tag only, of course, but I don't use the input tag. I use the select tag. So I write select, and then I write option. I write option. First I write, let us say, I write some name there, option, and then I copy and paste this. How many, when I click on the drop down, how many options should be displayed to him? The drop down should contain how many elements should be added in the option tag. So, I've added some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I've added one more for 10. And then I have added 10 elements, 10 elements to the drop down. So when I place this select option, all that, now let us see what will happen. So file, save, I come here, I refresh this, and then you can see this, I get a drop down, and in the drop down I get 10 elements in the drop down. So I can select, I have my drop down, actually my options are Naveed, and then here I can write, let us say Viresh, and then I'll write Padiyappa's name and so on. I can change all this. So I saved this, I come here, I refresh. So here you can see that I have Naveed, Viresh, Padiyappa and all that. So if I remove this element from here, then I will have only three elements. I will have only three elements in my drop down, in my combo box. So I saved that. I come to the web page, I refresh. Then if I go there, I will have only three: Naveed, Viresh, and Padiyappa. So this is how I place a combo box on a web page. What if I want to place a text area? Okay, what is a text box? This is a text box. If you want to place a text box on the web page, you write input type is equals to text, and then you come here, you refresh, you get a text box like this, and you can type something here. You can type something in this text box. Input type is equals to text. Okay, this is a single line text box. This is a single line text box. What if you need a multi-line text box? You must have seen it in many web pages where you have a text box which is multi-line. Multi-line in the sense you can write a big paragraph also there. So if you want to place something like that, what do you use? We use text area. We use the text area. We use text area. So now if I come and refresh this, you can see you get a text area here. So you can make it big, you can write something, then you can, in the next line also you can write something, and so on. So you get scroll bar like this. Okay, so you can see that you can type a lot of things here in this text area. What is a text area? What is the difference between a text area and a text box? The difference between a text box and a text area is that a text box is a single line text box. You can enter only a single line. You cannot have multiple lines in that. So you cannot paste a paragraph into a text box. Text boxes are used for names, age, and all that. A text area is for addresses, because addresses normally is multiple line, lot of data will be there, so you use text area for that. So whenever in a web page you need a single line text box, you use input type is equals to text. And whenever you need the user is planning to enter a lot of data like his address or a lot of data, paragraph and all that, we use a text area. Okay, so this is another control that we make use of. So we have text box, submit button, reset button, radio, checkbox, button, combo box, and a text area. Apart from these elements, apart from these form elements, there are latest advanced elements also, like a date picker. Like a date picker. What is a date picker? When you click on that particular item element, it opens a calendar, and from the calendar you can select a date. So instead of you entering the date in a form, you may ask a user to enter the date of birth or maybe date of registration of something. You may ask date. Okay, so instead of providing the user a text box to enter the date, the user will be confused as to enter the day first or the month first or the year first. They will get confused. So that's why what we can do is we can provide them a calendar from where they will select the date from the calendar. It becomes easy, like how we have a calendar here on Windows. No, if I click on that, on the right hand side you have a calendar here, so I can go to a particular year, a particular month, and then a particular date I can select from here. It becomes easy. So like this I can provide a date picker element to the user. What I'm explaining to you right now are the basic controls. I'm not talking about the advanced controls. Date picker comes in advanced controls, that we will see it later on. But right now, try to understand the basic controls available in a form. And why is that all these controls are coming in one single line? You can see that the text box has come in a line, submit button has come in a line, and so on. You can see that all of them are in a one single line. Why? Because I don't have a BR tag here. If I put a BR tag here, then you will see that they all come in new line. So I'll place this BR tags everywhere, and here also BR tag. And now if I save this and refresh, you can see that they all come one below the other, and so on. So I hope you understood exactly how to place form elements on a web page. We use form tag first, and then after that, first of all, in the web page there should be a form tag like this, and then after that you should have all the elements. Okay, and how to place the elements also you have seen. If you want a text box, you write input type is equals to text. If you want a submit button, you write input type is equals to submit. If you want a reset button, you write input type is equals to reset. Okay, and so on. So you have to remember what is these. If you write something else here, it will not come. For example, instead of this submit, if I do a spelling mistake, this is important. If you do a spelling mistake here, if I write input type is equal to submi, yes, UBMI, I do a mistake there. Okay, so file, I will save this. I come here, I refresh. You can see that the submit button has changed into a text box. The submit button, it is not a submit. What I need there is a submit button, but what has appeared there actually after the text box is another text box. Because what happens is, if the browser does not understand what is this type, it will produce a text box always. It will always produce by default a text box only. What I want here is a submit button. So right, input type is equal to submit. So I save that, I come here, refresh, then you can see the submit button appearing. Okay, so that is about all that. So now one more thing I forgot to tell you is about the label tag. The label tag, okay, it's important that before this input type is equal to text, you want to display user ID or something like that. You want something to come here. You want before this, in the front here, you want user ID to come, user ID or password, something like that. So you can use the label tag, label, label, and then slash label. So you can add user ID and then you can put a colon. So you can see now what has happened is from here to here is the label. This we get as it is, and after that there is a text box. Okay, so I will save this. I saved it. I come here, I refresh. Then you can see this label appears just before the text box. So I can use the label tag to place labels. Okay, now let us go back to the textbook and then see here what exactly we have. We have a label tag, title, and all that. So you can see this form here is produced from this code. So you can see that form tag is there, method is there, action is there. I told you we will understand this method and action later on. Okay, it is not required right now. But remember that this form tag has got two very important attributes. One is method and the other one is action. Other one is action. So form method is equals to get is equals to, we always here write either get or post. One of these two only things we write. We either write here get or we write post there. And then we write action is equals to, we write the name of some PHP file here. We write the name of some PHP file, which should get executed when the submit button is clicked. So we will come to this later on. We will come to this part later on. But right now, I want you people to remember the two important attributes of the form tag, the method and the action attribute. After the form tag, then you place items. What you need after that is you need a field set. You know, you can see here. I'll just try to increase the zoom it a little bit and then show you here. Yeah, you can see here from here to here. This is called as a field set. This is a small box which has come. This is a small box. Details is the small box that has come, and inside that box you have the form elements. So if you want that box to come, that details box to come, then you have to add a field set. It is called as a field set. Okay, so here you can see the output. I don't have a field set here. What I have is a simple form directly. I don't have a field set. If I want a field set, then I can have a field set here, no problem. So you have IE field set, and then I can take this field control X and I will put it after, just before the form names here. Yeah, field set. So when I saved it now, so you can see that the box has come. You can see that the box has come around it. This is called as a field set. If you want a box around your form, so you can use a field set. That is what I added just now. Okay, so you can have a field set. If you want the field set, you want some legend to be in the field set, in the sense you want, let us say this form of yours, you are asking the user to register, or this is the feedback form. This form that you are asking the user to enter, it's a feedback form. So you can, in the field set, you can have a label also. You can write legend. There is a tag called as legend, and then you can write feedback form in the legend after the field set. Then when I come here and refresh this, you can see that it appears like that. So it comes as the heading of the form, and it comes in the field set like that. Okay, so these are a few things that are there. I hope you will understand this. You can just type this program in any notepad or a text editor, and then you can save this, and then you can. So now what we can do is we can just have a, I want you people to type these programs in Notepad. I told you, you don't have to install any special software to run these HTML pages. You have Notepad, you will definitely have Notepad, because if you have installed Windows operating system in your laptop, then you can open Notepad. I am typing my programs here in Sublime Text, because here, these are all getting highlighted, and Sublime Text is good. It automatically puts me the closing tags and all that. Okay, you can use Notepad also. You can of course use Notepad also for writing your programs. If I close this, if I let us say, if I close that, if I go to here and then form example, if I open with, if I say Notepad, then I can of course see here, I have opened the program now in Notepad, and I can type my program, and I can do changes, I can save it, then I can go to the browser and refresh automatically. Whatever I've typed here in the Notepad will get executed. So I can use any text editor to type my programs. So I want you people to use a Notepad, type your programs here, save it with extension .html, remember that. And then after that, if you just directly come to the page, and if you refresh, if you directly come to the page and refresh, if you double click on that icon of HTML, then automatically it will open that in the browser, and you will see the output of your page. So I want everybody to please, use this technique, and then type the programs, practice these examples, so that you have a better understanding. Okay, so that you have better understanding. One second now. Yeah, this is where we were, and then I wanted people to type these programs in HTML body tag, see the output. Now next is how form works. In the examination, in the assignment also, I had asked you this question, how form works. It is important from examination's point of view. And there is a small diagram here, which is important. This diagram here, you have to understand that this is how the form works. Normally, I told you that I will have a web server. On the web server, I will have a lot of documents. I will have all HTML documents and everything. I will have HTML documents which will contain a form. Let us say that I have written a HTML file, I have written an HTML document, I have written an HTML page in which there is a form. All these pages, you all know that will be kept on the server. Initially, when I was explaining to you people how the internet works, I have told you that the web server will contain static documents and dynamic documents, static pages and dynamic pages. These pages will be kept on the server. How will the server serve these pages to the client? The client will first put a URL into the window and then send it to the server, and then the page is given to me. This is how it works. You have a server here. On the server, you will have is pages, HTML pages and PHP pages. This is the user, this is the client here. Okay, this character here is the client. The first step is the client will send a request to the web page, which will contain the form. Okay, so I will request for this example only now. What is the name of this page? It is formexample.html. So I will request for that page, formexample.html. So now the request goes to the web server. What will the server send to the client? The server will send to the client that page. Browser returns HTML document that contains a form. So the server will send that document, and it will get displayed on the client's machine in the browser. So this client will see this form on the browser. This is the second step. After the form is displayed to the user, what will the user do? The user will fill the form. The third step is user fills the form and submits the form. That is the third step. So the user will fill the form. What is asked? What is asked in the form? In the form, the title is asked and the country is asked. So the user will enter Central Park. You can see it is written here, Central Park, and then the country is United States. And then the user will click on the submit button. The user will click on the submit button. When the user clicks on the submit button, the data that the user has entered in the form, Central Park and United States, now this data, along with the request, it goes to the server. It goes to the server. Now the data that the user has filled in the form, the data that the user has filled in the form will go along with the request to the server. Now here it goes. Now the server has the data that the user has submitted. Now to process that data, the server will execute a PHP file, which in fact we as developers only will have to write it. We will have to write this PHP file. So the server will take that data which has come back from the user. The server will give that to the PHP file. The PHP file will execute. It will take that data from the form. It will process it. It will process it. So finally, the final step is this request is usually for some type of a server-side script that will process the form data. We would have written a PHP file on the server to which the server will give the submitted form data, and the PHP will receive that data which the user has entered in the form, and the PHP will process that data, and that is the end of the process. Now you'll ask me a question as to, sir, always the data is submitted to a PHP file. It is not necessary that there is always a PHP file here. It depends upon how we have written our script, our server-side script. And I have told you that you can write your server-side script using different programming languages. You can write your server-side program using PHP. You can write your server-side page using ASP, JSP, Python, Perl. You can use any programming language. It depends upon your skill. It depends upon which language you are comfortable with. Now we are going to study PHP as part of this subject. So we are going to write all our server-side scripts using PHP. So we are going to write a PHP file on this web server. The web server is going to receive the data. The web server is going to receive the data that the client has submitted in the form, and the web server is going to give that to the PHP file which we have written. And in that PHP file, we have to write the code to process that data. Now you will ask me a question as to what is the meaning of processing the data? What do we do with that data? Now it depends upon the company. It depends upon what code you have written. Now let us say I want that data which the user has submitted. I want that data to be stored in the database. Let us say the user has entered Central Park in the title and a country as United States. I want this data to be stored in the database. So in the PHP here, I will write the code to extract this data and then make connection to the database and store it in the database. Let us say I don't want to store it in the database. I want to actually mail it to somebody, or I want to send as an SMS to somebody. So in that case, what I will do is I will extract this data in PHP and I will write the code in PHP to email that to somebody. So it depends upon what I want to do with that data. I have to write appropriate PHP, what I want to do. So we will come to this PHP later on. That's what I'm telling you, that we will come to this PHP when we are in the 4th module. When we learn PHP, you will exactly understand what is the meaning of processing form. But right now, I want you people to understand this process. What happens when a form is submitted? When the form is requested, we have a web server here. We have a web server here. On the web server, I have a web page. On the web server, I have a web page. On the web page, there is a form. When the client will request for that web page, the form with the web page with the form is given to the client. The client then takes that, it is displayed to the client on the browser. The form is initially blank, there is nothing in it. The client will enter the data in this form. The client will enter data in this form. Okay, and then that data is submitted. When I click on the submit button, that form is submitted to the server, and the server will give that data that is submitted by the client to the PHP file, and the PHP file will process that data. So this is how forms work on the internet. It's a 5-step procedure. It's a 5-step procedure. I request the form, request the web page in which there is a form. The server will send me back that page which contains the form. The user will fill the form. The user will submit the form. The server will give it to the PHP and the PHP will process the form. This is the end of the process. This is how forms work on a web server, on a web application, you can say. Okay, I hope this is clear. And this is important from an examinations point of view. You have to draw a small diagram. Okay. However, it doesn't have to be like this. You can draw a small computer in place of this. You can draw a small box showing that it is a browser, and a client, you can use a stick character. If you're good in drawing, you can draw this. Otherwise, you can draw simple diagram also. Not necessary that you have to exactly print this only. Okay. Next concept in this is a query string. I will come to the query string. I will explain to you the concept of query string in the next class. Okay, this concept is a little, you need a fresh class for this. So I will explain to you this in the next class. Last 4 minutes are remaining. Okay, so meanwhile, if anybody has any doubts, if you want to ask me something, you please ask me. Or in the last class, if you had any doubts, you can ask me that. Okay, so please tell me if you have any doubts so that I can solve those problems. If you don't have any doubts, then we can stop the class today. Okay, you can just chat and ask me, or else I'll just unmute everybody. Wait. So I've given permission everybody to unmute yourself. So if there is anything you want to ask, please ask me. Or if there is nothing, then we will stop today's class, and then I will explain to you the concept of query string in the next class.